when we look at the lands for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, just what neat little snapshots into the world that we're exploring here. Yeah, so we have a series that are all kind of frontier towns, and then we have a series that's more of a wilderness landscape with a train traveling through it.
Yeah. I don't know how often they've been doing the regular basics all by the same artist. Maybe it's a lot, and I just haven't noticed, but I just love these, and so I was paying more attention. Because the stories take place mostly in Owenport or just in kind of one-off locations, and so there are a few cards that depict individual towns. I don't know, maybe this island is in Owenport. It looks like more of a new metropolis. It's got a lot of buildings there, whereas like the Plains looks like a classic, Wild West movie set for a ghost town. I guess there's some light from one of the buildings, so I think it is occupied, but
Yeah, it's like a smaller settlement. It doesn't feel like a big bustling community.
The forest is just
it's just a cart.
Yeah. There's a horseback here too. Yeah.
There's a little bit more going on, but it's basically a cart.
Yeah. Oh, and these what are these called? There's an artifact. It's actually in the set, the mobile homestead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's mobile homesteads depicted on quite a few other lands.
This is an RV park.
Yeah. The mountain is pretty similar to the plains, and it just feels like a
kind of just feels like another angle of that same setting.
Yeah. But the Plains has, sorry to bounce back and forth so much, but the Plains has one of the elements I absolutely love in this set, which is these enormous tumbleweeds.
I'm really into that too. I love that we have the smaller one up close, and then we have the giant one back there in the distance, so you can really appreciate how big it actually is.
They show up in a lot of art. Like the Rattleworm has these enormous things too. Have you ever seen a real tumbleweed?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, we collected one and put it in the car on a journey through West Texas one time.
Oh, yeah?
And it fell apart by the time we got home. But yeah, we picked it up and tried to take it home.
I took a lot of trips when I was a kid to and from California from here in Central Texas to visit family. And we'd go through all of New Mexico and Arizona each time. And so we would see them occasionally. I thought it was so cool because before that I only seen them in cartoons.
Yeah, I got to see some sandstorms too a few times, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, the tumbleweeds aren't that big in real life. In my experience.
They're really the ones that I've seen too. Yeah, maybe like a basketball, maybe a beach ball for a really big one. But like this is this is impressive.
Yeah, so that's a cool bit of flavor. For this plane.
I kind of like how the way this looks from like the first thought is like, oh, that's gonna take out that water tower or that watchtower or whatever that is back in the corner.
If it comes this way, it might take out the whole town. If it comes this way,
that maybe the town is done for. Who knows?
Yeah,
I like that.
Then the island has a lot of people in it. Is it the only one with any people?
It might be. I think we've touched on this in the past a little bit with some of our other basic reviews. Most of the time, lands do not feature people or animals. That's kind of a newer thing that some lands are doing now. It's still not a constant.
And that's part of, like we had alluded to, the lands that I have for my draft kit.
Yes.
I chose those because Jumpstart, I think, introduced, for the first time, a bunch of lands that had creatures or organisms.
Creatures or organisms, like, kind of, they're not central figures, but they're in the art, which was not typical prior to that. And this is kind of interesting. There's, like, 4 different people that you can see here.
Yeah.
I really like this fountain. I'm kind of a sucker for water features, I'm going to be honest. Whenever there's like a really pretty lagoon or something, I'm like, oh, I should run that. Like,
I can't tell if the water is supposed to be glowing or if it's just to be caught nicely by the light. It feels like it's glowing.
I feel like that too, because this feels like such an overcast setting that it seems like it's glowing, or maybe it's lit from within somehow.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen fountains like that have some kind of internal lighting that kind of give this ethereal effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
There are nice cactus gardens here, too. A complaint that I have voiced loudly on many Reddit threads and that I think is shared is that the pace that Wizards has put forth for which things are happening, they basically said this set came out 2 years after the events of March of the Machines, which I take objection with for so many reasons. But each set seems to be just like 4 to 6 months of time for the characters. And that's just not a tough time for things to happen. People have made counter-arguments about this set in particular, that yes, frontier towns sprung up so quickly in the Gold Rush, and that's kind of what's actually being referenced. Which, okay, I can buy that for some things. Like maybe the Plains town is that new. It looks like it was put together pretty hastily. I mean, look at the way the water tower in the back is leaning everything. It's kind of comical, and same with the mountain. But the city here, that's really pushing it for me. I'd buy 5 years, 10 years, and a lot of other things in the story. I do not want to go off my diatribe about Kellen again.
Oh, we've talked about that a lot.
I've made it.
I have a lot of strong feelings about that.
We'll have to come back to that.
That's going to have to be its own piece.
That is truly its own thing.
Yeah.
But also, these cactus gardens, I guess they could have transplanted very large cacti. The cacti grow slowly. That is what they do.
Yeah. I kind of take issue with that as well, that, like, it's okay for things to take time. Like, we can have lengthy gaps. It's okay for this to be 10, 15 years in the future. It doesn't have to be...
Yeah, I think it messes with the intended immediacy of the narrative for some of the characters, but...
I don't know.
Anyway, poetic license. Poetic license. The swamp, it's a little less clear what's going on, based on the perspective.
Yeah, it feels like maybe we're inside of a mine, looking out.
Yeah? There's a lot of canyons and ravines in this set, and I was assuming this is one of those, but maybe this is more of a cave or a mine situation. I've also been wondering, to kind of jump ahead, what are all these trains doing? Why are they here? There's an implication that either they're connecting a bunch of new towns, which would make sense because they said what's unique about Thunder Junction is all these Omen paths are stable onto it. So maybe it's just connecting the Omen path cities. But I think it'd be interesting too. And I think there's implication in some places that there's these industries springing up. So maybe this is a mine, like you suggested, and that's one of the things these trains exist to connect. The other thing, like Bonnie Paul Clear Cutter, seems to be like a logging reference, kind of.
Yeah, like, are the trains transporting cargo, or are people traveling on them?
We know they're people, because that's in the story where there is a train heist. Like, that's depicted with breaches card. There's that black and one spree card that makes you either your opponent discard half their stuff, sack half their creatures, or lose half their life, or all three. And it depicts a train with some zombies, and that's a fun moment in one of the stories too. So we know there are passenger trains, but I feel like there probably are other kinds. But yeah, I think that's a good explanation that this is a mine.
I feel like if they were exclusively for passenger travel, it wouldn't be necessary to build a train necessarily. That, like, there's other... I feel like that wouldn't be the default solution to we need to get people from A to B. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a cart before the horse, or chicken and egg element, because really, it's there because they want to do a Wild West set, and Wild West has trains.
And we need trains. But like, I think if we really boil it down to it, like, okay, like, I feel like passenger travel by train, and we should probably look up, like, any historical... like, I am just making this up, to be honest. But to me, when I think about it, passenger travel by train seems like, oh, we've already got these train tracks, we're already using trains to transport stuff. What if we also used it as an A to B route for people? Yeah. Not a, like, hey, we really need to get from A to B. What if we spent a lot of time and money building train tracks and engineering trains to go on them?
Yeah, at least our kind of fictionalized, romanticized notion of the Wild West is people in wagons, right? Or just on horseback by themselves.
Wagons,
I mean, it involves trains. That's part of the story.
And we have mounts in this set, so I mean, if you really want to go somewhere fast, like, you can take the Gitrog monster, I guess. You don't have to take a train. I mean, he might eat you after, but...
that's a particularly risky bet, but I mean, he only eats one of the people.
So, like, take a couple friends.
So. And one of them will probably get eaten.
You'll be fine.
In your favor.
You'll be fine. You just have to run faster. I had a thought that I wanted to visit. You read the story and summarized it for me. A lot of these people came from New Capenna, right? Yeah. That was one of the elements. Did New Capenna have any trains? Like, where did all these trains come from?
Yeah, there's a locomotive in New Capenna. There's a card. It's a green card that... I gotta look it up.
Okay, because I wanted to add that to the time skip thing, where, like, do you expect me to believe that these people showed up and engineered trains?
Yeah, I think they referenced that.
Cool.
It's Kaladesh and New Capenna.
Okay, so there is a precedent for this kind of technology.
Yeah. I have to find the New Capenna train, though, because I'm curious, when we look at the trains depicted on the lands, we can compare the trains we saw in Kaladesh versus New Capenna and trying to sort out which which technological basis is most prominent.
I'm gonna guess it's Kaladesh, just based on their history of having lots of cool...
New Capenna is like supposedly built more vertically than horizontally, so I'm not sure where all these trains would have come.
Yeah, if they had like a lot of elevators, I would buy that as being a New Capenna thing.
Yeah, it's a little more believable. Here it is, Capenna Express. Yeah. Sacrifice a treasure to crew it, or just crew it. Yep.
Cool.
And yeah, it's got that super Art Deco style. And yeah, now that I've been recently looking at these arts, they feel a lot more Kaladeshi? Is that the...
Kaladeshian? I don't know. What would be the correct...
adjective? I'm sure it exists. We'll look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's look at some of these trains and take
well,
a peek.
the one last note I have about the mountain is it has this windmill, and they also have a similar windmill depicted in kind of disrepair and concealed courtyard art. I just like that they invented a windmill style just for this plane.
I like that.
It's cool. But yeah. Let's look at the trains.
Okay, I love that we have a callback here in the plains to more giant tumbleweeds.
Yes!
Yeah.
So clearly
So
just
happy
part of
to see
the
that.
art bible for the set in general.
Gotta have big giant tumbleweeds.
What are these things in the foreground, though? They're clearly some kind of vegetation.
That's a great question.
Those
don't look recognizable to me as anything I've seen before.
I first went to mushrooms, but surely not because it's a desert. It's supposed to be arid, so it must be like some grasses.
So there are an African group of succulents called lithops that look like living rocks. They kind of look like that, but they're much larger. Actual lithops are small, like maybe the size of a quarter. I think there's some that can be a bit bigger, but like these are huge in comparison to the tumbleweeds.
Can absolutely
if that's a train, those are tumbleweeds. Like these are massive.
Yeah.
So they do kind of bear a resemblance to that. Other than that, I don't know.
Tumbleweeds are plants that they're like bushes that like uproot themselves and roll around to spread their seeds, right?
I think so.
So somewhere these tumbleweeds are growing out of the ground like
somewhere
this.
There's enormous...
Before they have uprooted.
Yeah. I don't know if we get to see that anywhere.
I don't think so. That's probably a lot less interesting, though. Maybe that's what these are.
Maybe that's like an immature form of them. Yeah. Maybe that's what they look like as they're sprouting.
I'll be doing some Wikipedia research.
We're gonna have
and
to
if I find any clear results, I'll put in the
We're
images here. Post
deep dive into botany
if
later.
you're not looking at any images here, I didn't find anything. All right.
I love the angle on this one where we're looking
island?
down onto this train
really
track
cool.
and down onto these rock formations.
Yeah, those are beautiful. I like the color of the whatever these contrasting objects are, which I think are supposed to be like gemstones or some other mineral
kind of mineral.
protrusion.
I like too the big plume of steam. So like this is a steam powered train as opposed to some other form of energy. That's kind of cool.
That's interesting. I wonder. So Kaladesh works on ether, right? That is the.
I mean, that was the energy counterplane with
Does
the
that
ether.
stuff?
I don't know.
It must not transfer because otherwise they would probably just bring it over.
Maybe it doesn't work if you bring it here.
Yeah, and I think part of the world building for that set was it's unique to Kaladesh.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of what we were talking about with Geralf's theory, where it loses its potency if it leaves Kaladesh.
Yeah. We know there's different laws of physics in different planes because what is it, Xerex, Strobe Knight, and the invasion of Xerex in Mom, and they had the. It's like MC Escher world is kind of its thing, so...
Yeah. I mean, I would completely buy that there are elements and things that do not transport between planes and have the same effect.
Yeah. Like you said, the bridge here...
Yeah.
That's some wild technology. Look how long that is with no supports. This is not an arch. This is just this...
This reminds me, there's a video I watched recently because I just finished the Water 7 arc in One Piece where they talk about an architect analyzes the idea of a sea train that goes between islands.
Yeah.
I would love to see an architect analyze this concept and weigh in on how this might work.
Yeah.
So if you were an architect and also play Magic, I invite you to pursue that. 'Cause I don't have the knowledge to say anything interesting about it other than, wow, that looks improbable.
And cool.
And cool.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how that works.
Yeah. the swamp here gives us the closest look at the train itself. And there are other cards that aren't lands that have better depictions of the close-ups of the trains that we can look at too. But this one gives us, I think, the clearest answer. This is obviously Kaladesh technology.
That feels like a Kaladesh
with all those
vehicle.
swirls. It looks like Sahili would have sculpted
I
that.
also want to point out with this one, I really like whatever these spiky things are.
Yeah.
This
They're
has,
clearly organic.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of like certain types of puffball mushrooms that like
that feels right.
Will burst and release spores.
Yeah.
But I also really like the dark liquid up front. Like this has a very like original Phyrexia vibe to it that I really appreciate.
So the mountain makes a liar out of me, because in the video on the full art lands, I asserted mountains don't float in this world.
I guess they do.
But this is this is the only one I've seen other than that. So apparently it happens, just not often. But there is no ambiguity here. Some of these objects, like the one on the back left, maybe it's anchored a little bit, but like this piece kind of in the center foreground, that is just floating. No question about it, right?
I wonder how, like, what's happening here? Like, what's holding these up?
I don't know. I presume they just float like they do in the Sarah's realm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And finally, the forest. It doesn't look very actually foresty, but it sure feels green.
Yeah, I like how they really leaned on showing different kinds of cacti for the forests. Because we're in a world that obviously doesn't have any classical, like, big, leafy, evergreen woods to explore. Yeah. So I like how they did that with just use of, like, grassy areas and the different cacti that we can see.
Yeah. I love the feel of those mountains. This definitely feels like of the places depicted on these basic arts. This is the place I want to go.
That does look like a really interesting place to explore. I'm really curious about why they built the train track in that way. With like, out of all the places that we could go, let's hollow out a hole in this formation.
Well, look at the one that's in the upper back left. There's just a hole there already. Maybe it was just there.
Maybe. I'm assuming a lot here, but like, that is a real curvy train
But it also
track.
feels like the personalities involved in the magic setting, it's very possible that they did it because they could.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it does look cool.
Yeah.
I'll give them that.
All right. That's more than we've ever said about the basic plans, but I feel compelled, before we wrap up, since I mentioned that the other cards that depict the trains, we ought to just have a little closer look, because I think we probably won't get back to this subject again, because there's only so many weeks before the next set, as always. And the way these trains appear to move themselves is so cool. I think this is either going to be on the kind of overrun card, or it's on one of the dual lands that I saw this. Let me check the overrun effect first. Full steam ahead. No, that one really... Oh, it does depict it. So these trains, most of the basic lands we just looked at, have this wheel that you can see the top of. But you can see here that the wheel goes through and is actually like clawing on the ground and like pulling the train along via friction. And we see the steam plumes everywhere. So presumably steam plumes are driving these giant saw wheels that tear into the ground.
There's some real Final Destination potential in this. Like,
yeah.
I want to look at these in a new way.
Isn't that crazy? I'm gonna just skip down to the duels too, because the
I see it on
the full art on the conceal on not the cycle of fast lands, concealed courtyard, blooming marsh, botanical sanctum, inspiring advantage, and spiral. Those are a.
Is that a panorama?
It is. It's a panorama, and it depicts the same thing with them splashing up water as they go through the water. It seems like this would be a real big mechanical problem, because after one of these goes over there a couple of times, I would figure it would leave this rut. Yeah. And the next one wouldn't have anything to grab onto.
What is it getting traction on?
But that's their problem. They got to be sustainable in their designing. So.
That's true. Like, you know what?
That's not on me.
I don't have to think about that.
Yeah, on that note, I think I'm done.
Yeah, that's really cool. I had not actually taken a good look at these and thought about the mechanics of how that would work.
Yeah, cool.
That's very intriguing.
Yeah, this one looks like a passenger train. The cars we see are all passengers, like 7 or 8 cars long. But I maintain. Well, you know what? In the Spire Bluff Canal, there's a couple others that are something else. They don't have the same structure as these, so maybe they are something. I don't know.
Very interesting.
All right. Good?
I think so.